afternoon, I'm going to talk about the history behind football, one of my favorite sports. I hope you enjoy. Some of the things that I will be talking about today are the creator of the football, the Green Bay Packers, Curly Lambeau, and more. I chose this topic because I am interested in learning more about my favorite sport and the history behind it. I have loved football for many years, which is why I wanted to learn about more about it. For me, football games are entertaining to watch. Although I enjoy games from long ago, I prefer to watch today's game of football. Instead, it is fascinating to see how the sport of football has evolved over time. Known as the father of football, Walter Camp was a sensational Yale University football player who helped to create one of the most popular sports ever in 1876. The sport of football was based off of a form of rugby and was already being played in universities on the East Coast and Canada. Camp was the originator of the first rules used in football. Such rule that he developed, and is still a rule used today, was a team had to give up the ball unless at an advance a specified distance within a set number of downs. Camp wrote the first book about the sport titled American Football. The original copy of the book is selling for $2,000. One of the most famous teams in football is the Green Bay Packers. Some give credit to the team for starting the National Football League. Vincent Thomas Lombardi was a coach for the Packers, winning 5 championships because he's known as one of the best coaches in football history. The NFL Super Bowl trophy is named after him, the Lombardi Trophy. The Green Bay team was one of the first teams created in the NFL and were then tense rivals of the Kansas City Chiefs. Their rivals today are the Chicago Bears. The Packers started off as a box company but became a great football team in the original league, the American Professional Football Association, or APFA. The APFA first began with 10 teams from 4 states and now has evolved to 32 teams in what is now known as the NFL. Curly Lambeau was one of the most important people in football. Lambeau not only founded the Green Bay Packers, he played for them and was their coach for a total of 31 years. At 21 years of age, Lambeau worked at a company in Green Bay called the Indian Packing Company, making $250 a month. A year later, this company organized a football team called the Packers, which is the only small-town football team to still exist in the sport today. Uniforms have definitely evolved from over time. Back in the early days of football, players' uniforms were made mostly of leather and cotton. Because helmets were not part of the uniform at the time, mask football helmets became no, wait. Because helmets were not made on the uniform at the time football became a sport, players relied on masks for protection. Face masks were made of leather and used to protect the player's face by completely covering it. However, holes were cut out for the eyes and nose. The first helmet designed for the sport was in 1910 and made from soft leather and moleskin, earning the nickname Leatherheads. In 1930, a metal face mask was added to the design to increase protection. Because of repeated collisions, players first used cotton padding sewn into their shirts to help protect their shoulders from injury. However, in 1901, the first under-the-jersey shoulder pads were produced and were made of heavy leather and held in place with elastic straps. Finally, football pants were made of tough canvas material with light cotton padding sewn into the thigh and knee area. Lastly, the cleats were high-top boots made from leather and had rubber spikes that could not be removed. In my opinion, uniforms have come a long way from the wool jerseys, knee-high socks, and leather helmets from the early years. In early years, footballs were difficult to carry and awkward to throw due to the shape of them. They often deflated during games, therefore a football game took far longer to play than it should have. In 1890, players changed the shape of the football, which resembled the look of a watermelon. The newer shape made it a bit easier to play the game. However, it was still tough for a player to throw the ball, and it continuously deflated. Eventually, an oversized version of today's ball was created, which made the playing game far easier than it previously ever had. Players were capable of throwing the ball farther than they ever had before. The new design was called the prolate shape spheroid, and it is the same shape football that is used in today's game. The highest scoring game ever recorded in the National Football League occurred on November 27, 1966 in Washington, D.C. The Washington Redskins and New York Giants combined for a total of 113 points, with Washington Redskins taking the victory over the New York Giants 72-41. To conclude, I learned a lot of new things about the history of football throughout this project. It was interesting to learn that Walter Camp was the founder of football, even though he didn't finish college at Yale. It was fascinating to read that Curly Lambeau was 21 when he started to play the sport of football, but only played for 3 years and went on to coach the Packers for 29 years. What I found most interesting was the evolution of the football uniform, because back in the olden days of football, they did not have a lot of protection due to the materials they were made of. Today's uniform has far more protection using a wide variety of materials. The helmets today is actually considered bulletproof with the components that it consists of. So what did you find most interesting about my presentation? These are the resources that helped me create this project. Thank you for being such a great audience. I hope you learned something about the history behind football this afternoon. Are there any questions?
Excellent job, Noah. Do we have any questions for our presenter tonight or this afternoon? Anybody?
No, it's Mrs. Thompson.
Mazzy. Oh, Mrs. Thompson, Miss Mazzy. Who's going to go first?
Go ahead, Miss Mazzy.
Hey, Noah, I really liked your presentation. I kind of like how you asked the question at the end of what was the most interesting thing. I think the most interesting thing that I found when I was listening to your presentation was about how all of the equipment was made out of leather, because that was considered kind of the strongest material back then because they didn't have plastic yet. Plastic wasn't invented for that purpose yet. One question I had for you was, what was the most surprising thing that you learned about football, knowing, that you watch a lot of it now and you love it? Like, what was so different that surprised you in your research?
I would have to say it was probably learning about the evolution of the uniforms and just how, the materials were so different from each other. Like, now leather is used to make clothing and couches and stuff like that, but it used to be used as, uniforms for football and stuff.
Neil, go ahead.
The part I liked about your presentation was about the evolution of the football, like how it went from a soccer ball to what it is now. But do you have any idea of what the football stadiums were like back then?
They were just like a grassy field they still had the numbers written down where the yards were, but they didn't have all the seats and they just didn't have all the stuff that we have now. They didn't have the lights to shine on the stadium or the seats or anything.
Thanks, nice job.
So Noah, you and I share a favorite team. Do you think Ben Roethlisberger has another season in him?
I believe so.
We better hope so, right?
I was going to ask Noah what his favorite football team was, because I actually kind of thought it was a football team from Los Angeles, because that's where he moved from. I'm glad I didn't ask that question, because the Steelers aren't my favorite. But now I don't know who I'm going to root for, because, with Brady going to the Bucs, who knows what's going to happen. Mrs. Connors.
Noah, I loved your presentation. I even had a friend sitting next to me who loved your presentation because she loves football.
Yeah.
So we both enjoyed it a lot. Quick question. So out of everything in your life, I know you said football was like your favorite sport, but was there any particular reason why you chose football? Is it something? Oh, Molly, that's what Molly wanted to know. That's what Molly wanted to know. She wanted to know, out of everything in your life, why did you pick football? Is it something that inspires you from everything that you could have chosen?
Because ever since I was little, I would always watch the games with my dad, and I always enjoyed it. But I always wondered how it all started and where it began.
That's awesome. And Molly thinks you did a great job. Thank you so much.
Noah, did you know that football started so long ago?
No,
When did you think football actually started?
like in the mid 1900s.
Okay. I was actually really fascinated with the information you shared with us about the football helmets, because they weren't really considered football helmets, in my opinion, because it just looked like they were just wearing a leather hat. So I thought that was quite fascinating, and thank you for sharing that with us. Are there any other questions for our presenter, Noah, this afternoon? Okay, Noah, excellent job. Congratulations. I'll give you a round of applause. And you have finally finished your Genius Hour project, so great job. Our next presenter we have is Lily, and she is going to share with us a little bit about optical illusions. So Lily, go ahead and start sharing your screen.
Hello, I'm Lily, and today I'm going to be talking about optical illusions. I have a lot of facts about optical illusions and a few about the brain itself. Let's jump right in. As you can see, this is my table of contents. Today I'll be talking about the brain, what optical illusions are, how both the brain and illusions affect each other, and much more. Did you know the human brain puts images together because it has learned to expect certain things? The brain, as we know, helps us to think and learn. The brain is always learning and holds a lot of information. The brain is made up of two hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is responsible for functions such as mathematics, analytical thinking, and reasoning, whereas the right hemisphere is responsible for more creativity, like art and imagination. Some people are stronger in one hemisphere over the other because they are better at a certain skill, such as being good at art or math. There are three different types of illusions. One type of illusion is an auditory illusion, which are illusions you can hear. An example of this would be a beeping sound that changes slightly when it crosses two fingers, touches a spherical object like a frozen pea, resulting in a person experiencing a feeling of touching two spherical objects, and not just one. Lastly, an optical illusion is an illusion that can be seen, such as the illusion pictured here. What do you see? Optical illusions are images or drawings that can be seen differently. The illusions can confuse a person into thinking one thing, while others may see something different. Some images may not make sense, and they can make a person overthink them. Illusions can also trick somebody into believing an image is a certain object. For example, in the illusion above, one person may see a goblet while another person may see two faces looking at each other. Which one do you see? Optical illusions affect the brain by tricking a person into seeing something that is not real. It is a disconnect between reality and the interpretation of what is seen through our eyes, or perception, that causes the illusion. The mind is constantly trying to interpret what is around us, so optical illusions become far more challenging when trying to bring images seen to the eyes. However, once the trick is seen in an illusion, it is very difficult to unsee it. This happens because once the prior knowledge is available, the brain quickly connects it and puts it together with the visual cues that were forgotten from actually looking at the illusion to begin with. But why does this happen? Although most people believe optical illusions are caused by eyes playing tricks on them, optical illusions actually have more to do with the brain works and less to do with the optics of the eyes. The brain can become confused in many different ways. One such is when the brain creates mismatched impressions. Mismatched impressions are when visual areas of the brain receive and process information differently from what the physical reality is. An illusion is proof that a person does not always see what they think they do because of the way the brain and the entire visual system perceive and interpret an image. How many animals do you see in this picture above? If you said 2, you're correct. I chose this topic for my Genius Hour project because it was interesting to me. I really wanted to know as much as I could about illusions, also because I did not know much about illusions. I was eager to find more information about them. I love illusions and find them fascinating with how they can confuse you. Optical illusions can be seen in everyday life. You might even see them in regular photos too. There are different opinions on illusions. I love them, however, some people might not like them. The brain has 2 hemispheres, with the right side being responsible for creativity, while the left is responsible for things such as math. There are also 3 types of illusions that people may experience: optical illusions, auditory illusions, and tactile illusions. Illusions are like mismatched impressions, where the eyes are seeing one thing, while the mind is thinking another. As you take a look at this picture here, what is it that you see? I hope you enjoyed my presentation and learned something new about optical illusions. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Great job, Lily. Excellent. So do we have any questions for our presenter? Yes, Ava.
When did you become interested in optical illusions?
Last year, I mostly became interested. When I was looking up ideas for the project, I saw some optical illusions, and it really intrigued me.
That's cool.
Mrs. Connors.
Lily, I loved your presentation. It was so cool. And some of the slides while you were talking, I was trying to figure out what they were. There was one that said there were 2 animals. I only saw one. So of course that makes me think of, what kind of brain do I have? And my question to you is, Lily, what is your favorite optical illusion that you've ever seen? Do you have a favorite one?
I think my favorite one was the 2 animal ones.
It was. Can you tell me what the other animal was?
There was a duck and a bunny.
And a bunny. Okay, I saw the duck, but not the bunny. Thank you. Nice job, Lily.
Neil.
Have you ever had any experience in making an optical illusion? Or
I don't think I have. I'm not sure.
Actually, you were making some optical illusions at school before
yeah, I
you went
remember
into remote
you
learning.
did something like that in class or something.
Yeah. I think there was a book that you had, Lily, right? And you were able to create
Yeah.
some models of optical illusions from there. So you have had some experience with it.
Yeah, but they didn't really work that much.
Do we have any more questions for Lily?
I have a question for Lily.
Sure, Mrs. Keene.
Did you learn any tips or tricks and when you're seeing an optical illusion of kind of how to figure it out to see what you're missing? Like anything you should do with your eyes or kind of look in certain places or anything like that?
No.
I don't know. In looking at your presentation and reading through it, I don't know if you were able to find any information or if that was a focus of your research when you were creating your presentation. I have to say, what I tend to try to do is kind of really stare at a certain spot on an optical illusion in order to see a difference, such as your last slide when it said, look at the black spaces. I was actually seeing a building with columns. And then when I read, look at the black spaces, it taught me to look at the spaces to see if I could notice a difference. And I did. So that was very helpful. So Lily,
Lily, I'm sorry.
oh, so go ahead. I'm sorry, Mrs.
Lily,
Thompson.
this is something you may not have gotten into either, but sometimes when I look at certain optical illusions, depending on the pattern, I feel sick at my stomach.
Yeah.
Like I feel queasy. Do you know what makes that happen?
No, I didn't read about that.
I think I'll look at some of your sources and see if I can find out more about that.
Yeah. Lily, I did notice that you brought up the two hemispheres of the brain. In your opinion, what is your stronger hemisphere? Do you rely more on the right hemisphere for the creativity or the left hemisphere for more of the analytical thinking? Or what is your strength?
I think I'm better with creative stuff and art.
So you're more of a right hemisphere
Yeah.
lady. Okay, thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. Okay, do we have any more questions for Lily? All right, Lily, thank you very much for presenting. You did an excellent job. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge about optical illusions with us. Next, we have Miss Ava, and Miss Ava is going to actually share with us all that she's learned about in regards to tsunamis. So Ava, you may go ahead and present, or I'm sorry, share your screen. And it looks like you are all set to go, Ava.
Hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation. Tonight I will be talking to you about tsunamis. I hope you enjoy. In my presentation, I will be talking to you about how tsunamis form, the size of an average tsunami, and many other things. Here's a quick fact before the presentation begins. Did you know people used to think tsunamis were caused by the sea god Poseidon getting angry? I found that fact quite interesting. Now, are you ready to learn about tsunamis? A tsunami is the series of waves caused by earthquakes or undersea volcanic eruptions. Out in the deep ocean, tsunami waves do not increase in height. However, as the waves travel inland, they build up to higher and higher heights as the depth of the ocean becomes shallow. So, how do you think tsunamis form? I think they form by a fault line shifting deep within the earth. A tsunami is the result of an underwater earthquake. A great example would be the San Andreas Fault. It is the sliding boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. It slices California in two, from Cape Mendocino and to the Mexican border. San Diego, Los Angeles, and Big Sur are on the Pacific Plate. San Francisco, Sacramento, and Sierra Nevada are on the North American Plate. When the fault line shifts, it creates a powerful force which then propels the water forward, creating a tsunami. Are you curious about how big a tsunami can get? Well, if you think big, you're right. Depending on the size of the earthquake indicates how big the tsunami could become, with the average height being about 10 meters or 33 feet. In my opinion, this height seems small, but I know if I saw one of this size, it would not appear small to me at all. When first launched, tsunami waves do not get very big, about 1 meter tall. That's why ships at sea never see the danger. Once a tsunami wave has reached the shore, the height and danger is more apparent, making it difficult to give warnings quickly. I think it's concerning that warnings do not go out quick enough. When warning goes out quick enough, people have a better shot at survival. I bet you will not believe how fast tsunamis travel. In the deep ocean, tsunamis can move as fast as a jet plane, or over 500 miles an hour, and can cross entire oceans in less than a day. As the waves enter shallow water near land, they slow to a speed of a car, or 20 to 30 miles per hour. The tsunami is amazing because of its speed. Some people think that tsunamis are tidal waves, but they are not the same. Tidal waves are much slower. A tsunami depends on the depth of the water, but tidal waves depend on the moon and the wind. So tsunami is much faster. Do you think tsunamis can cause a lot of damage? Well, if you do, you're right. Tsunamis can cause great loss of life and property damage in coastal areas. Very large tsunamis can cause damage to coastal regions thousands of miles away from the earthquake that caused them. That's unbelievable. The 2004 tsunami of Banda Aceh, Indonesia, was the biggest tsunami ever recorded. That tsunami reached the height of 100 feet. Tsunamis were the most deadly subtype of earthquake, with an average of 79 deaths for every 1,000 people affected. This makes tsunamis almost 20 times more deadly than a normal earthquake. In December 2004, a massive magnitude 9.1 earthquake off Sumatra Island in western Indonesia triggered a tsunami that killed 230,000 people in a dozen countries. Tsunamis occur most often in the Pacific Ocean and Indonesia, because the Pacific Rim bordering the ocean has a large number of active submarine earthquake zones. However, tsunamis also have occurred recently in the Mediterranean Sea and are expected in the Caribbean Sea as well. I chose this topic because I wanted to teach you and myself about tsunamis. Also, they are very scary and dangerous. That's what makes them interesting. Tsunamis have always scared me, but now that I have the facts and information on them, I'm not scared. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. I would love to thank Mrs. Ertman, my fellow key peers, and my school. Thank you all very much for helping me along the way. First of all, who learned something? I know I did. I learned how deadly tsunamis are, their speed, the damage they can cause, and more. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you learned something new about tsunamis.
And do we have any questions for Ava?
I have one.
Mrs. Connors. I don't know who had their hand up, but I saw Mrs. Connors.
Ava, awesome job. Molly is loving these presentations because she has been so obsessed with tsunamis since we've been home, and we've been watching YouTube videos on them. So as soon as she heard it, she came and sat right next to me. So Ava, we've been watching a lot of them, like people that have filmed them on like their phones or whatever, if they've been in the area of a tsunami happening. Do you happen to know where the biggest tsunami ever happened?
The biggest tsunami ever recorded was in Indonesia, and it killed about 200,500 people,
Okay.
and it reached the height of 100.
100 feet, that was the one. Okay. Thank you so much. We loved it.
You're welcome.
Noah.
Ava, do you know if there has ever been any tsunamis on the U.S. coast?
I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty sure there has been some in California because of the San Andreas fault line.
Neil?
This is just a comment, not really a question, but for vacation, I went to Sri Lanka, which is kind of close to Indonesia, and we saw monuments from what I was the same tsunami as she was talking about.
Yeah.
In 2004.
They probably did do monuments because that was the biggest tsunami ever recorded, and it killed the most people in a tsunami that has ever happened.
Yeah.
Ava, I've heard and I've seen that sometimes before a tsunami, the animals all start running away from the beach. They head inland and the birds fly inland. Did you learn anything else about how to predict a tsunami?
I did not learn anything else about that, but I do know that the warnings aren't always given out quick enough because of how small they are when they first start.
So Ava, I was fascinated with the speed of tsunamis because I actually didn't know that information. What was the most fascinating fact that you researched or that you found in your research?
I think the most fascinating fact I found in my research was how fast they went. Because I know, like, from living in Florida when I was young, that the beaches, the waves are really slow and fun to play in. But when I found out that tsunamis can go as fast as a jet plane, I was amazed because I didn't know waves could travel that fast.
Thank you for answering that. Great answer.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Miss Ava this afternoon? Okay, Ava, great job. Thank you so much for presenting. You were excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We learned a lot. Okay, next we have Max, and he is going to share with us a very hot topic in society right now. So Max, we're going to turn it over to you, and you may start sharing your screen.
Hi, my name is Maxton. Today I will be talking about bullying and how it affects others. Did you know that the most common type of bullying is verbal harassment? Well, turns out that 79% of people bullied are verbally harassed, and that is partly why I chose this topic. Speaking of choosing my topic, let's talk about that. I picked this topic because as a North School student, I can see that it is a problem. I've also experienced bullying myself, and I would not want anyone to go through the same experience I did. I want to raise awareness by bringing attention to this problem. Bullying happens everywhere, even on the internet. Do you actually know how bullying starts? Let me give you an example of how bullying starts. Imagine this. As you are walking around and someone comes up to you and says something that's really offensive for no reason whatsoever. The problem is that this keeps happening for months and months. Finally, you are really upset that you are being bullied. Because this keeps happening, you slip up one day and take out your anger out on someone else. It feels so good that you keep doing it over and over again. Therefore, the person you take it out on does what you do after months and months of being bullied and repeat. This is really sad, but it does happen frequently. There are other ways bullying can start, such as cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a huge issue and could be an entirely different presentation by itself. To touch upon it, cyberbullying is the use of electronic communication to bully a person, typically by sending a message of intimidation or threatening nature through social media and various apps. So now that you understand how it starts, I think we can move on to how it affects people. Bullying has many negative effects on people, which include depression, anxiety, changes in sleep, changes in eating, and decreased grade point average. According to stopbullying.gov, the depression and anxiety comes from not wanting to go to school because of people who bully, as well as changes in sleep. The decreased GPA is from not being able to focus in class. Rather, it's about being scared of those who bully you. The effects of bullying, however, are quite different. So unlike bullying, unlike being bullied, bullying has its own negative effects. Some studies from stopbullying.gov show people who bully have violent behaviors, can vandalize property, have criminal records, and may also drop out of school. For example, being bullied can cause depression, while bullying others can cause violence in certain people. To go into more detail, stopbullying.gov states, quote, kids who bully others can also engage in violent and other risky behaviors, end quote. StopBullying.gov also says that bullying can cause people to treat family members or close friends violently, such as physical abuse. But bullying can also have effects on those who watch it happen. Unlike bullying others and being bullied, bystanders can be affected in many different ways. Bystanders may skip school fearing though they may be next. Also, bystanders may be diagnosed with depression. They can also develop anxiety, feeling as though they could be next. 30% of bystanders will stand up to a bully and say something to a teacher, or, if the bullying takes place in a workplace, a boss. But 70% of bystanders will do nothing because either they see the person as a friend or don't know how to react to the situation. Although those are just some of the reasons bystanders choose not to react, there are many more reasons as well. Let's head to the closing. My final analysis is that bullying has varying effects on all types of people, ranging from dropping out of school to depression. So next time you are about to say something, even if you think it's not insulting, be sure to think twice. Asking yourself, would I want someone to say that to me? I hope after you've seen this presentation, you think before you act or speak. And remember, treat others the way you want to be treated in return. This is my trifold that I have created for my interactive table display. This is the video that I created And so it talks about how bullying can affect people, figuratively, of course.
Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking to you about how the effects of bullying and how it can affect people with one simple piece of paper.
Well, that's a stupid idea, just like you.
Oh, well that makes me sad and I just want to print paper.
Hey Max, how's it going?
It's nothing.
Hey, I heard what was going on there, and I thought that was an awesome idea.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, and by the way, your new haircut looks great. Keep up the good work.
Well, since he gave me a compliment, I feel much better. And figuratively, I'm going to uncrinkle the paper because it makes me feel better. But since there still are some wrinkles from the effects of bullying, it can never go away.
Here you will see some resources that have helped me with my project. I would like to especially thank Mrs. Munsey, the North School guidance counselor, for being my expert for this topic. I would also like to thank Ryan for the skit idea. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Are there any questions?
Excellent job, Max. Do we have any questions for Max this afternoon? Miss Mazzy.
Hey, Max, great presentation. I saw you had a lot of information about cyberbullying on your poster. Would you be able to talk a little bit about that? I know that that was a piece that wasn't hugely in your presentation because you had it all on your trifold.
Yeah. Here, just give me 1 second.
Yep. And Max, also, when you finished, I would love to see that skit. There's a button next to your mute button that says share computer audio. If you click that button, we'll be able to, we weren't able to hear the skit, and I really would like to. If after you answer the questions, you could play it again.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to mention that. Thank you, Miss Mazzy.
Yeah. So yeah, I got some stuff. My interactive table is about preventing cyberbullying, and I have some stuff about some rules that you can establish if you have children that you are afraid might be cyberbullied. So one could be you might want to educate your children about how cyberbullying can hurt other people, and if you want to, you might want to set some expectations for them, like on what websites they can and can't view. Also, if you really, really want to, you can monitor their online activity, like social media and internet sites.
Great information, Max.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Ava.
I really liked your presentation, and I was wondering how bullying affects like people with depression, like, and if you knew anything about people with depression who got bullied, who didn't get depression from bullying. My internet connection's unstable.
Well, so people who already have depression, who might be bullied, could experience, like, they could get it in more of a worse kind of manner, or they could just experience some of the other side effects, like anxiety, changes in sleep, changes in grade point average, and eating and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you.
No. Noah?
Max, do you know if there's any other ways that bullying starts?
There are quite a few other ways. Like, it could just be like if you come from a bad family, if you've been abused before. Yes, that's like another one. But I think one of the most common ones is probably the one I put in my presentation.
Yeah.
Excellent answer, Max. Are there any more questions for Max?
Yeah, Max, I think it's sad that only 30% of people speak up to help a bully, but I understand that. I think sometimes people just don't want to get involved. What do you think could be done to make that 30% higher?
I mean, we could try to raise awareness that it really is a big problem and it has a lot of negative effects on people, and that if we can stop it early, then people there'd be less negative effects on other people.
Mrs. Connors.
Hi, Max. That was a fabulous presentation. Thank you. It meant a lot that you took the time to explore that area and that subject, and I would love to talk more with you and Mrs. Ertman about holding on to that video and sharing it to future students. It was so well done.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. So well done, and I think other students would gain a lot of information from it. So my friend next to me has a question, and my question is, Max, you talked about bystanders and people being able to, well, not bystanders in the sense of that they're doing it, but somebody helping and reaching out. And at the beginning, you had said that you'd been bullied before, and Molly was wondering if anyone stuck up for you when you were bullied.
I guess it kind of was the 70% because I didn't have anyone sticking up for me.
But can I ask a question? I bet because you've been in that situation, you would stick up for somebody else now.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Sometimes bullying can be hard to recognize.
Yes.
But learning more about this topic, I've definitely been able to recognize more times where people have been bullied from not being bullied.
Excellent. And that's what I loved about your presentation. I learned a lot.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, Mrs. Connors, because I actually already had the conversation with Max about possibly if he would be okay with us, if he would be okay with me sharing this presentation within North School next year, where we are going to be talking about Choose Love, and it would just be a great addition to that program. So we already had that conversation. So I'm glad that you were thinking the same thing. Great minds think alike.
I was. And I will tell you, Molly just said, you know, Max, she said, you're really, what was the word you used? Brave. Molly said, yes. Max is really brave to be able to share that. And you are. And I think it's awesome because you make it real for kids. It's not just the adults sharing the story. It's somebody who we know sharing the story. So thank you.
And it's a topic that many kiddos are afraid to bring up. So being able to have the confidence in doing that, Max, is pretty incredible. Your images were very chilling. I felt that they were very chilling. Every image that I saw on each slide just brought chills to me. And I thought that your quotes were so powerful, so incredibly powerful. So knowing that you're going into the middle school next year, is this something that you would like to share with teachers or administration or join a club so that this could raise some awareness at the middle school?
Yeah, I guess that would be a pretty good idea because then we could really get the topic across to more people.
I'm so happy to hear that. You're a great advocate for it. So thank you. That's pretty incredible, Max.
I'm so glad I got to see that video. That was really, really well done, Max.
Ava.
I really loved your skit. It was very powerful, even if it was just one little piece of paper, because it is true that if you do get bullied, it really never goes away, because it's always in the back of your head or somewhere.
Thank you for sharing that, Ava. Do we have any more questions for Max this afternoon? Excellent job, Max. That was a very powerful presentation, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Great job. So we have come to the end. Our last presenter we have this afternoon is Neil. And Neil has really learned how to do something that he really wants to maybe do when he gets older. Over to you, Neil.
Have you ever wondered how to code a video game or how video games originated? My name is Neil, and I certainly have. Tonight I'm going to share with you what I've learned. Some topics I'm going to share with you tonight are different coding languages, the evolution of video games, and how to make a video game. I chose this topic because every time I play a video game, I always wonder how it was made. It's probably coded, and I love coding because it's like a secret message, which is then presented for our amusement. Coding is something that interests me, which is why I want to become an engineer. I also like video games, but I'm not addicted to them. These are examples of some popular coding languages, but there are others such as Lua, SQL, and Ruby. JavaScript and HTML5 are some of the most common coding languages. I created a video game for my project and used these two languages to develop it. To make my video game, there were many steps I had to take, but in this slide, I simplified the process. First, I had to use HTML5, a coding language, to display all the boxes and the submit button. Secondly, I used the same programming language to populate or concatenate the letters in the bottom box. Then I used a dictionary listing all 5-lettered words, and this list will see if a submitted word was correct or wrong. If a word was correct, then there would be a GIF of a winner, or if the word was wrong, there would be a try again GIF. At the end of my presentation, I will demonstrate to you my video game. Are you ready to hear some interesting facts about video games? The creator of the Game Boy had first worked as a janitor in Nintendo. A fact that is really fascinating to me is that people stationed in Antarctica have the ability to play Candy Crush. Another really cool fact is that the Xbox was originally called Direct Xbox. Also, Sonic the Hedgehog was originally meant to be Sonic the Rabbit. Another fact I learned is that the person who invented Pac-Man came up with the idea while eating pizza. But the most interesting fact I learned about was that the first home video game console was made right here in New Hampshire by Ralph Baer. That's amazing. I've already mentioned that Ralph Baer created the first home video game console, the Brown Box. Now I'm going to tell you some more about him. Ralph Baer was born on March 8, 1922 in Pirmasens, Germany. He and his family fled Germany right before World War II in 1938. Between 1943 and 1946, Ralph Baer served in the United States military. A little after this, Ralph Baer married Nina Winston in 1952. Their son's name was James Winston Baer. But the big event was Ralph Baer creating the Brown Box, a video game console. This invention was made in 1967. The Brown Box is what made Ralph Baer famous. Ralph Baer then died in Manchester, New Hampshire on December 6, 2014. You can find his statue in Arms Park, downtown Manchester. Ralph Baer was a pioneer in the video game industry, having invented the first game console. On this timeline, it shows when some of the more popular video games were developed on different game consoles. The first video game, named Pong, came out in 1958. 12 years later, the big arcade hit Pac-Man came out from Toru Iwatani. In 2001, Microsoft came out with the first Xbox. Half a decade later, in 2006, Nintendo came out with the Wii to get gamers and non-gamers alike moving around while playing video games. In 2010, a Swedish man introduced Minecraft, which became a very popular block building game. Lastly, in 2017, the Nintendo Switch was released, the first mobile/home video game console. I've learned a lot from doing this project. I've learned how to code a simple but efficient video game. It is exciting and a lot of fun to see how I could play around with my creation. I also learned about many different coding languages that I never knew existed. But all the things involved in making video games are far more complicated than I thought they would be. I realized how much work goes into making these games. If Ralph Baer did not create the Brown Box, the first home video game console, I may never have had the opportunity to create my own video game for this project. As you can see, I found many websites that helped me with this project. These are all the people that helped me with this fun project. My dad and uncle were my expert advisors. I could never have made my video game without their guidance. Mrs. Ertman introduced the project to me and taught me how to present my ideas while using the slides. This is my trifold I created for my presentation that would have been on display at North School. I chose to share it here with you. On the right side, there are fun facts such as Pokemon was inspired by butterflies, and the maximum number of points you can get on Pac-Man is 3,333,600. On the left, there are advantages of video games, like how video games can fight depression and help hand-eye coordination. In the middle, I made a recreation of my video game. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Please ask any questions after I've presented my video game. This is my video game. The first and last letters of a 5-letter word are displayed. You have to guess the 3 middle letters to complete a dictionary word. Does anyone have any ideas about this word?
Is it devil?
Is it north?
No, there's a D and then an L at the end.
Oh, but Mrs. Connors is not correct.
So devil's correct. And you press reset to do it again, like to go to a new word. Anyone have any ideas on this word?
I'm going to guess table.
And now I'll show you what happens when you get a word wrong.
Oh.
You can just use Mrs. Connors' word.
That's really cool.
I love it.
So that's my video game.
Very cool.
Any questions? Noah?
How long did it take for you to code your video game?
Like a few months, like 3 or 4 months. Ava?
Did you get frustrated when you were coding the video game?
What?
Did you get frustrated when you were coding your video games?
Yeah, there were a lot of like roadblocks that. Yeah, it was really frustrating, and I got kind of mad. Miss Mazzy?
Neil, as you know, the technical terms that are needed to be a computer engineer and to code, especially video games, and a lot of the programs that we use daily, and even coding such a small game, you can see how things like Google Classroom will glitch on us or Zoom will glitch on us. I really appreciated in your presentation that you were able to explain something so complicated in layman's terms, and you really played to your audience and knew, who was going to be listening when you explained. So that showed some really great judgment on your part. My question I have for you is, how many words did you put or code into your game? Like, what is your how many in the algorithm?
I'm not really sure, but I probably guess like 5,000 or something.
Wow, so you've been for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, we copied and pasted. I copied and pasted dictionary word, like a whole list of dictionary words, and put it in the code. So.
Awesome. Neil, I would love to get the link so that next year in my classroom I could use it as a station or a activity for students to do, because it really gets your brain thinking about letter combos and letter patterns that you need, especially with vowels when you're given the first letter and last letter of a word. So that would be a very awesome thing to have.
Yeah, the only thing with that is that since the video game is coded on my computer, it's like a local file. So
you published it. Okay.
Yeah, so there would be like some trouble, but it would
I
be
would
fun.
love if you get a chance to publish it. That would be cool.
Something to work on. Maybe your Genius Hour project isn't quite done yet.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Connors.
Neil, I have a question. Is you thanked so nicely your dad and your uncle for helping you during this? Is this like a family hobby? Is this something that they do as well?
Well, my dad and uncle are both engineers, and
Okay.
my dad codes and stuff, but he does like different, like not exactly that.
Okay, so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just a little bit.
And I'm sure it was an honor for him to show you all that stuff. So nice job.
Yeah.
Neil, how would you like to learn more? What would you like to move on to and learn about next?
Like I really had an interest like right now, like this is just like a sudden interest kind of thing, but AI engineering.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for our presenter this afternoon? Our last presenter. All right. Thank you, Neil. You did an excellent job. Congratulations on completing your Genius Hour project. And with that, my friends, we have completed our key showcase for 2020. I want to thank you all for being such a fabulous audience. I know that the presenters truly appreciate all of the questions. You made them feel so special. And although we weren't able to present this at North, you still helped to make us a success. So we all appreciate that.
And Mrs. Hartman,
yes.
Before we leave, I just want to say, and it was so great to see so many of the kids thank you. But thank you so much, because doing this remotely and being able to make this so wonderful as it was, thank you so much. Thanks for all your support with all the kids. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for always being there for everyone. It was just,
welcome.
This is pretty cool to see you guys do what you're doing. So thank
You're welcome. It's been a great ride. It's been 2 years. It's been wonderful seeing the growth in all of the kiddos. I am truly going to miss this group of kids as they move on to the middle school in the fall. And I really hope that they are not going to be strangers and they come back to visit. They're destined for great things. So I'm really proud of all of them. My friends, once I get the link, I will share it with all of you so that you can share it with family and friends as well who weren't able to join us this afternoon. And my key kiddos, you'll be able to get that link too. So hopefully we'll have it at some point soon. And once we do, you'll definitely have it. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much.